Yo, what's going on everyone? My name's ePower and welcome back to another character guide video. Before I get into this week's video, I just want to say thank you to everyone who watched my last guide video. You guys gave me such great feedback and have shown me so much support. I really appreciate it. Again, if you guys have any questions, just mention it in the comment section below and I'm going to do my best to get back to you guys. To all my new viewers, I hope that this video is going to help you in a way or two and that you guys are going to learn a few things. And remember, if you guys enjoy my content, please consider subscribing as I will continue to make more Genshin Impact videos. With all that being said, let's get into the good stuff. So today, I'm going to be covering Saber from Jean from Genshin Impact. So Jean was actually my first 5-star character in this game, and ever since I got her, she has always been on my team. From what I've seen and from what I've heard from other Genshin players, it seems like that a lot of players are actually hesitant about building her, mainly because she is too much of an all-rounder, and she doesn't really excel in one particular area. However, I found that this is not the case with her. I think she's a phenomenal healer and can be a great main DPS if she is built correctly. But before I go into her different builds and her different styles of combats, let's go over some of the basics. Alright, so to start, Jean is obviously an Anemo or Anemo character. I'm not too sure which pronunciation is correct, but feel free to let me know in the comment section below. But in order to send her, she's going to require these wind gemstones, hurricane seeds, dandelion seeds, as well as these ominous masks. Now, you're going to be getting these masks from Hilichurl, and you're going to be getting a ton of them as long as you guys are just playing the game. Because, yeah, one of the main monsters that we kill in this game, as you guys know, are Hilichurls. But pretty much whenever you ascend her, she's going to gain a lot more healing bonus, and ultimately at level 90, she's going to get a healing bonus of 22.2%, which is a solid bonus because this means that if you guys decide to build Jean DPS, she can still dish out a ton of healing for your team. As you guys see, I'm now actually AR 50, but I haven't unlocked Jean's last ascension, and that's mainly because I've been spending my resin farming artifacts for Shanli, and geez guys, I can't tell you how excited I am for him. Like, I've got a bunch of maxed out artifacts ready to go for his initial release day, and I'm going to be making a video covering him as soon as possible, so please stay tuned for that. But enough about Shanli, this is a video about our main girl Jean. Let's move on and take a look into her skill set. Her first active talent is called Phaephonia's Blade Work. Jean swings her sword around for up to 5 consecutive strikes. It's going to be 1 hit for each click. There's really nothing too special about this, but I do want to mention that her 3rd, 4th, and 5th attack have the highest scaling damage. Also, along with that, when you hold down your left click, Jean is going to do a charge attack. This is where things actually get a little interesting and fun with Jean. So, her charge attack will actually launch enemies into the air and they will slowly fall back down. This is great because it is a method of CC. This becomes incredibly useful when you're doing higher levels of Spiral Abyss, and this charged attack knockup is also the start of Jean's combo move. This is something I'm going to talk a lot more after I cover the rest of her talents. And as with most other characters, Jean has a very standard dive attack. So for talents level 1 through 6, you guys are going to be needing resistance talent books. Those are the ones that look like the little shields. Along with that, you guys will need the masks from Hilichurls. For talent level 7 and above, you guys are going to be needing the plumes from Storm Terror. Now, when you guys level up her talent, she's going to be gaining more damage across all her methods of attack. Jean's second combat talent is Gale Blade, and guys, this skill is absolutely one of the funnest skills to use in this game. What other skill is there? There's nothing else that lets you grab your enemies and toss them around like a ragdoll. You can throw your enemies off a cliff, drown them in water, and it is just amazing. So, this is a channeled ability, meaning that if you hold your E, Jean is going to pull enemies and objects towards her. When you let go of her E, she's going to launch the enemies in whatever direction you're facing, and it's going to do elemental damage. Now, there are 2 downsides to this ability. The first is that you have to stand still and you can't use the skill while moving. The second is that it does consume stamina while channeling. However, you can always use the skill as an instant cast for the burst damage, and it is not necessary to channel it. The skill is always great because it has an extremely low cooldown of 6 seconds. This is going to help generate more energy for Jean to get her ultimate ability up. Upon leveling up the talent, the skill will do more damage. Jean's last active combat talent is Dandelion Breeze, and guys, I honestly do think that this elemental burst is highly underrated. When used, Jean instantly heals her team based on her own attack. And at the same time, it does AoE wind damage to any enemies around her. Not only that, it's also going to leave behind an aura which will continue to regenerate HP of whoever is standing in the field. As well, anyone entering or exiting the aura will take more anemo damage. The skill has somewhat of a low cooldown at 20 seconds, and the damage multipliers are quite high. When the talent is leveled up, it's going to do more initial elemental burst damage. It's also going to be doing more damage to enemies that are entering or exiting the field. Along with that, there's going to be more activation healing as well as a much higher continuous regeneration. Before I go over what her typical combat gameplay looks like, and before I go over some of her combos, I'm going to finish up talking about her passive talents here. So the first one that we have here is Wind Companion. With this, whenever Jean does her normal attack, they do have a 50% chance to regenerate HP equal to 15% of Jean's attack for all party members. This is really good when you're running like a physical DPS build on Jean, just because she's going to be doing a lot of normal attacks, and this means that she's going to be providing a lot of sustain and a lot of healing for all her party members. The second one that we're looking at here is Let the Wind Lead. With this, whenever Jean uses her elemental burst, she's going to be gaining back 20% of its energy. This is also fantastic because it fits in really well with her kit. It's going to allow her to provide a lot more damage output. Along with that, she's going to be healing her team a lot more as well. The last one that we have is Guiding Breeze. This is more of like a gimmicky sort of passive talent. So essentially, whenever you use Jean as a cook, and more specifically when you use her to cook dishes with restorative effects, there's going to be a 12% chance where you will obtain double the products. Okay, so a lot of people don't know this, but Jean can actually pull off some pretty crazy stuff. She has a combo where she can essentially do 2 ticks of fall damage, and I'm going to show you guys how she can do that here. So I'm in game right now. I'm using her E skill just to get the monster knocked up, and you can see that it took 18,000 from fall damage. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show off her combo. So she goes into a charged attack. When the monster is floating, you angle your E downwards for 1 tick of fall damage, and as soon as I see the number pop up, then that's when I angle my camera to the top, and then I release her E skill. And then when the monster drops, it's going to take another tick of fall damage. So you can see just that full combo alone did more than 50% of its HP. And of course, I should have healed up. I guess I just got my ass beat. But yeah, I'll show you guys in another clip here too. Okay, so I'm back in game here, and let me show you guys how the combo works without any interruptions this time. So I'm going to go into charge attack. After the charge attack, I hold down E, take 1 tick of fall damage, tilt my camera back up, and release. And you can see that that combo alone did more than 50% of the monster's health. And again, this combo is amazing because it actually scales off of the monster's total HP. So the higher you go in adventure rank, so right now I am adventure rank 70, or adventure rank 50, holy shit, 70 would be crazy. Yeah, world level 7, and that's how much damage I'm doing to these particular elite monsters. And not a lot of people know about this combo, and I want to just show that off a bit more, because when you do it correctly, Jean's damage output on these single target enemies is just crazy. It's insane. She does so much damage. Yeah, so if you guys are using Jean, it's pretty important to learn and master this combo, because this is extremely helpful when you're clearing endgame content such as higher levels of Abyss, as well as like the level 45 domains. You guys are going to be seeing some pretty ridiculous numbers there, like 25k to 30k fall damage, and with the combo it's probably going to be around 60k altogether. And not only that, I'm sure as endgame content progresses, monsters are going to have more and more HP, which means that Jean is only going to get better and scale much better as the game progresses. So let's start off with the 5-star weapons here. We have the Aquila Phaephonia. Now this is easily the best weapon for a DPS Jean build. It has an extremely high base attack, and the secondary effect is that it's going to increase physical damage, which is very important. The weapon effect is also going to increase all attack by 20%, and when you have the sword equipped and when Jean takes damage, she actually has a proc effect with this weapon. So when she takes damage, she's going to be healing 100% of her attack, and she's also going to deal 200% of her attack as damage in like a little AoE circle. Now, keep in mind that this effect can only occur once every 15 seconds, but it's still relatively a low cooldown. This sword is just so good for her because it gives Jean a lot more sustain as well as AoE burst damage, which she actually lacks from just her overall kit. So this sword pretty much makes Jean amazing. But again, this is a 5-star sword and not everyone's going to be able to get this weapon. So I am going to go over the 4-star weapon choices too. And if you're really struggling out there and you don't have a 4-star sword, which is near impossible I think, then I'll quickly talk over a 3-star weapon as well. The next choice that we have is Skyward Blade. Now, again, it is another 5-star weapon, so right off the bat, it's going to have really high base attack, which is really good for Jean. Although the secondary stat is Energy Recharge, this is still a really good option for DPS Jean, just because she's going to be putting out a lot more Elemental Burst and dishing out crazy amounts of AoE damage with that ult. But not only that, the weapon effect here is pretty damn solid too. It's going to give a flat crit rate increase of 4%, and whenever Jean uses her Elemental Burst, she's going to gain a buff that increases her movement speed by 10%, her attack speed by 10%, and it's also going to increase the damage of her normal and charge attack hits by 20% for 12 seconds. Now, this is really good because, again, all of these effects really benefits her, and especially with that high energy recharge, she's going to be getting off that elemental burst quite often, and she's going to be giving herself that self buff. Pretty much, guys, if you have a 5-star weapon for Jean, you want to use it, because both of these choices, be it the Aquila Phaephonia or the Skyward Blade, they're incredible for her. And again, I know that everyone's not going to have a 5-star weapon, and keep in mind too, Jean does not, I'll repeat this again, Jean does not need a 5-star weapon to be useful or to be good. She can be incredible with just 4-star weapons, and I'm going to talk about the 4-star weapons right now. With 4-star weapons, there's a lot more options to choose from. I'll start with the weapon that everyone gets once they hit AR10. This weapon is the Prototype Rancor. If you're a pure free-to-play, this is the go-to and most likely the best option, and there's really no other choice unless you get lucky with your Gacha Pulse. So this weapon is going to give physical damage bonus as a secondary stat, and the weapon effect is a stacking buff that increases your attack and defense by 4% for each stack. As you guys are playing through the game, you're going to be getting a lot more of these sword prototypes, which means that you can easily refine this weapon. Each time you refine the weapon, you're going to be gaining 1% for both attack and defense, so this is pretty damn good. Again, Rancor is a really good weapon for a DPS build just because of how easily accessible it is. Next weapon I'm going to talk about here is the Flute. This is another great choice for a DPS build. So the Flute gives attack percentage as a secondary stat, which increases Jean's overall damage and healing. Along with that, as a weapon effect where your normal or charged attacks are going to gain something called a harmonic on each hit. So you can have a max of 5 harmonics, and when you do reach 5 harmonics, it's going to trigger, dealing 100% attack damage to surrounding enemies. These harmonics last up to 30 seconds, and a maximum of 1 can be gained every 0.5 seconds. If you guys are lucky with Gacha, I'll definitely recommend the Flute over the Rancor because the AoE damage is going to be very helpful in just Jean's overall damage output. Last weapon I wanted to mention for a DPS build is the Black Sword. Now, this weapon is only available through the Battle Pass, but it is an amazing weapon for Jean. The secondary base stat is crit rate, and the weapon effect increases damage dealt by normal and charged attacks by 20%. Not only that though, whenever Jean crits, she's going to heal herself for 60% of her attack as HP. This effect can only occur once every 5 seconds, but this is still going to give her so much sustain. So out of all the 4-star weapons, this is easily my best recommendation. But again guys, this weapon is no longer free to play because you need to buy the Battle Pass. And for the people who are spending money on this game and buying the Battle Pass, it is not a bad idea to grab multiple copies of this weapon just for that refinement bonus. But that choice is up to you because all the other Battle Pass weapons are pretty darn good, so it might be worthwhile to grab one of each. Now, there's 2 more 4-star weapons that I want to cover for a support build. The first is Sacrificial Sword, and guys, if I was going to make a tier list on how fun a weapon is, this is going to be my first choice, hands down. So, Sacrificial Sword gives energy recharge as a secondary stat, but it is the weapon effect that makes it amazing for a support build. When you damage an enemy with her elemental skill, the skill is going to have a 40% chance to end its own cooldown. This can only occur once every 30 seconds, but this means that you can continuously throw monsters around and you can pull off that Jean combo, which is going to deal so much fall damage. So even if you guys are building Jean as a pure support build, you guys can dish out a lot of damage just abusing fall damage essentially. So that energy recharge too is going to be great at getting more elemental burst and healing and supporting your team. Now guys, if you guys don't have the sacrificial sword, my next go-to for a support build Jean is going to be the Faithonius sword. But this weapon is okay. And again, if this is your only option, I'm definitely going to suggest going for the Rancor instead and focusing on a DPS build for Jean. Okay guys, so if you guys are looking for a 3-star weapon, then my go-to choice is either going to be the Skyrider sword here. It's going to give you energy recharge, and whenever you use your elemental burst, you're going to be gaining 12% in attack and movement speed for 15 seconds. The Fillet Blade here is not a bad choice either. It's going to give attack percentage as a secondary stat, and it does have an on-hit effect of dealing more damage. I'm really not going to cover too much about the 3-star weapons, just because if you guys aren't AR10 yet, go and hit AR10. It's only a few hours into the game. It's not that bad, and you guys can get yourself the prototype Rancor, which is just so much better than having that 3-star weapon. This is always the section that I'm a little hesitant to cover, just because it's unrealistic that most players are going to get duplicates of the same 5-star character, unless they are putting in hundreds and hundreds of dollars into this game. And to reach Constellation 6, you're easily looking at thousands. But either way, I'll keep this short and go through the constellations very quickly. Just remember, constellations are never required for 5-star characters. They are amazing the way they are, and constellations are just an added perk. So the first one that we have here is Spiraling Tempest. Essentially, it's going to increase the pulling speed of Gale Blade, and if you hold your Gale Blade for more than 1 second, it's going to increase the damage dealt by 40%. So this is great for her E ability, just because it's going to do a lot more damage. But again, most of the damage that comes from E is actually the fall damage itself. The second one here is People's Aegis. With that be, oh man, why did I keep clicking off of that? But either way here, whenever Jean picks up an elemental orb or particle, all the party members are going to have their movement speed and attack speed increased by 15% for 15 seconds. So this is pretty darn good, especially if it's a support build Jean, just because you're running around, you're picking those elemental orbs, and then you're switching to like your main DPS characters such as like Tartaglia or Diluc. Third constellation, pretty standard stuff. Again, it's the same as all the other character constellations at Constellation 3. It's just going to increase that talent level. And Constellation 4, this is where Jean's elemental burst is going to reduce all of the enemies' Anemo resistance by 40%. This is pretty amazing. And again, for those support build Jeans or even DPS build Jeans, if you're constantly having her on the board, having her energy recycled, she's just going to continue reducing Anemo res. But right now in the game, we don't really have a dedicated Anemo main DPS. I'm looking at players who are big whales with Constellation 4 and eventually going to have Xiao on the team. Those are going to be some insane team compositions, and Xiao is just going to do that much more damage. Constellation 5, again, same thing. It's just going to increase the talent level. And Constellation 6 here pretty much just creates a huge shield for anyone in the team. Like, all incoming damage is reduced by 35% for anyone standing in that Dandelion Breeze, which is her elemental burst, and this is freaking amazing. 35% damage reduction? That is insane. But again, Constellation 6, guys, it's never needed. Actually, none of these constellations are never needed. 5-star characters are amazing just the way they are. Now we're going to get to something a little bit more interesting than constellations. This is probably the section that most of you guys wanted to tune into. And first of all, I'm just going to show you guys how my Jean is currently built. I'm just going to talk here, and at the very end of this little section, I'm going to give a quick summary of the sets and pieces that you kind of want to go for. So right now, my Jean is on 2 pieces of the Bloodstained Chivalry and 2 pieces of Gladiator's Finale. Now, I have it on the 2 piece of each, and this is why. So the 2 piece of the Bloodstained set is going to give me 25% physical damage, whereas Gladiator is going to give me 18% attack. Now, this is really good right off the bat, just because let's say if I'm running like a full set of Gladiators, it's actually going to be a little useless in a sense, just because I'm not going to be making use of that 4-piece set bonus. So if you guys can read this, like, if the wielder of this artifact set uses a sword, claim, or a polearm, increases their normal attack damage by 35%. Yes, so this is great on paper, but if you actually think about it, most of Jean's DPS and physical damage will actually come from her charged attack. So you guys aren't going to be making the most use out of that 4-piece bonus. So actually, also, for the longest time, I did have my Jean on the 4-piece gladiator set. It's not bad at all, but I think just running the 2-piece and then running the 2-piece from Bloodstained is even better, because the 2-piece for Bloodstained, you're going to be getting an extra 25% straight up physical damage. And the 4-piece is actually quite nice too. This is something that I haven't had the chance to farm artifacts for, but eventually I do want to give the full 4-piece a try, just because after defeating an opponent, it's going to increase your charge attack damage by 50%, and it reduces the stamina cost to 0, so pretty much she can just continuously spam that charge attack and dish out a ton of damage. But again, yeah, I would love to give this a try. I've been thinking about it. I think it could work well, but the only issue is that you would more than likely run into some challenges like killing the monster first of all in order to proc that effect. Now, in terms of the main stat that I like to look for the hourglass spot, for the chalice, and for the helm spot here, hourglass, I have it on an attack percentage, and then goblet, physical damage bonus. As for the crown, I'm on a crit rates main stat here, so I switch between the crit rate and crit damage depending on how I feel. I find that unless you're getting really close to like 50% crit rates through all the other substats of the other pieces of your artifact, then that's when I would switch to crit damage. But because Jean doesn't have a lot of crit rates to begin with, like her essential ability, that one doesn't actually give her any crit rates, so that's why I like to run this crown. It just seems to provide her a lot more consistency in her damage, especially when she's doing a lot of charge attacks and auto attacks, and her main focus is from that. Other viable option is having hourglass, goblet, and helm, all 3 of these on attack percentage. This is going to give Jean a bit more damage through her elemental burst and elemental skill, but not only that, it provides her team with a lot more healing because her healing output scales with how much attack she has. So remember, her passive talent, she heals based off how much attack she has, and that elemental burst of hers scales with attack as well. So what I'm covering right now, again guys, is a pure DPS Jean build. I'm going to go over how to build Jean as a support right after this, but before I get there, let's finish and take a look at what substats we want now. So the substat priority that you're looking for is crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, energy recharge, and then elemental mastery. One last thing too guys, I've been thinking about the different sets that you can put on her, and with the new character coming out, and it seems like that we're hitting this geo character kind of phenomenon where people are going to be running a lot more shield characters, retracing Bolide might actually be a great choice for her, because it's going to give her so much more sustain, because that shield strength coming from a geo character is going to increase by 35%, and as long as she's under a shield, she's going to be gaining 40% more normal and charged attack damage. So this seems like a really solid option for her as well, especially with the new geo characters coming out. Going back to the substats here, so crit rate and crit damage are very important just to give Jean that much more burst damage from her attacks. Attack percentage, again, that's great because it provides her with that much more overall damage and healing. Energy recharge to get those elemental burst off a lot quicker. Elemental mastery, so elemental mastery is a very neat one for Anemo characters, because for Anemo characters, elemental mastery increases the damage done by Swirl. However, Swirl only procs when it is infused with a different element. As you guys can see though, even my Jean doesn't have like the best substats. It's pretty ridiculous to like roll perfectly on these artifacts. This is probably my best one for her, where it's going to give almost all the 3 top priority substats. However, the one I'm missing here is crit rates. It would be nice if I got crit rate instead of elemental mastery. This one here is pretty shitty, honestly. Like I only got crit rate and elemental mastery. The rest is defense. And as for my physical damage bonus one here, not the best either. It has no crit rate or crit damage. And then for my crit rate, this one's decent here. So I do have a lot going to crit damage and a decent amount going to energy recharge. So again, it's very hard to roll perfect substats. So definitely just try and prioritize like 1 or 2 stats. And those two, the main focus is going to be crit rates and crit damage. One more thing to note as well here, when you guys are just first starting off, you guys obviously won't have access to like the Gladiator pieces or the Bloodstained Chivalry pieces. So what you guys can do instead, you guys can just run the Berserker piece. You guys can even do like 4 pieces of that, attack percentage on all 3 spots. Now, let's take a look at what a support build Jean looks like. So, because of how versatile Jean is, she can be built so many different ways as a support build. The first set we're going to be taking a look at here is going to be the Fair-Distant Veneer set. So, the 2-piece bonus is going to give her 15% more damage on her Elemental Skill and Elemental Burst, but it is that 4-piece set bonus that we're really going after. So the 4-piece is going to increase swirl damage by 60% while decreasing the elemental res to whichever element it's swirled with by 40%. So what this means is that if an enemy is inflicted with Pyro, for example, and you use Jean's E or Q ability, it's going to cause something called a Swirl, which is going to debuff all the other enemies nearby with Pyro at the same time. But while doing that, it's also going to reduce their elemental resistance to Pyro by 40%. This is so good for Jean because this is really going to help her team do a lot more damage, especially when she doesn't have to be constantly out in the field. As a support build Jean, you're mainly looking at getting her skills off and then switching her out for another character. Another set that's really good for her too is the Noblesse Oblige. This is going to give her more elemental burst damage, which is great because Jean's elemental burst already has such a high base multiplier. So another 20% on top of that is going to deal so much more damage, and she's also going to increase all of her party members' attack by 20% for 12 seconds with that 4-piece set bonus. With that too, as a support build, you can put her on like an energy recharge hourglass slots, attack for Goblet and attack for Crown, just so that her elemental burst will deal the most amount of heal damage and healing, while that energy recharge is going to let her recycle that ability over and over again. Now, for substats, you're probably just looking for attack percentage, energy recharge, as well as elemental mastery, which does give her more swirl damage, but crit damage, crit rates isn't going to be the most important, as she's not going to be your main DPS. Again, attack percentage is going to be the priority just because most of her healing does scale off of attack. There's another set that I want to mention too. It is not the best choice just because I find that the other sets just do so much more for her, and that says the Maiden Beloved. So as you can see, it just increases her healing by 15%, and using an elemental skill or elemental burst is going to receive or is going to help her team receive 20% more healing as well. So I find that with Jean's elemental burst healing already, if she's built correctly, it's going to pretty much heal her entire party to full anyway. So that 2-piece and that 4-piece doesn't seem very necessary, and she's going to benefit her team so much more when she's on either the Noblesse Oblige or when she's on the Fair-Distant Veneer sets. Now guys, if you're not ready to start farming the domains for Fair-Distant or for Noblesse Oblige, I'm definitely just going to recommend the sets of Exile. So Exile is really good just because it increases her energy recharge by 20%. So again, that's going to allow her more elemental burst, and with that 4-piece bonus, the more elemental burst that she does is going to regenerate 2 energy for all party members. So this just gives her team so much more overall supports. Also, I wanted to talk about the elemental reaction of Swirl and do a quick explanation of how that works. So, Swirl is a reaction that can only occur when you use Anemo onto an enemy that is already afflicted with a certain element. So that element can be either like Hydro, Cryo, Electro, or Pyro. Essentially, what Swirl is going to do, it's going to spread out that effect to all the other enemies that get caught in it. So the clips that I'm showing here in the video are ones that there's usually one enemy inflicted with an element, and you can see how Swirl is actually going to spread Hydro to all the other enemies that get caught in it. So why is this important to know? Well guys, it's important because Genshin Impact is a game where elemental reactions are really going to make a huge difference to your gameplay. Elemental reactions will multiply your damage output significantly. So let's take for example now, you have a bunch of enemies that have the Hydro debuff all over them. Now what you're going to do next, you're either going to switch to like a fire DPS, and then any pyro attack that hits the Hydro units, it's going to be dealing vaporized damage, and vaporized does 1.5 times more than just your regular damage of pyro. So that's why it is so important to make use of the Swirl and to apply as many of those debuffs as you can, just to use those elemental reactions. Last thing I want to go over today is some general team compositions with Jean. So guys, because of how versatile Jean's kit is, and because she's an Anemo character, you can stick her into any team and she will be useful. With Jean on the team, you really don't need another healer first of all. She can be your main or secondary DPS, as well as a damage buffer if you decide to run her on the Fairy Distance set. Again, that set is used to reduce the enemy's elemental resistance when the enemy gets caught in a swirl. One thing I do recommend, however, if you are deciding to use Jean on your team, it is to run 2 Anemo characters just so you can get the elemental resonance buff of Impetuous Winds. Now guys, this buff is crazy good because it's going to increase your stamina consumption by 15%, increases movement speed by 10%, and it's also going to shorten your skill cooldown by 5%. These are all amazing stats and buffs. Stamina consumption, for instance, is going to let you dodge more, swim longer, glide further, give you more charge attacks, movement speed for more mobility, and shorter skill cooldown. That means you can be doing a lot more fall damage with Jean from her elemental skill and providing your team with a lot more AoE damage as well as AoE healing through her elemental burst ability. So here is kind of my main team that I use with Jean. I have Jean, Sucrose, Mona, and D-Luck. With that team, I have the elemental resonance buff Impetuous Winds. Jean is there as a secondary DPS. Mona is here to support my D-Luke by providing D-Luke with those vaporized elemental reactions. And Sucrose here is on the Fairy Distant Veneer set, which is going to further reduce the elemental res of my opponents. Now, if you guys are like completely free to play, but you guys are lucky enough to have pulled Jean, then I might run something like this even, right? So you have 2 wind characters. You have Akaya and Shanlang, and they're going to work together to, you have the Melt elemental reactions. Even this team here is just going to be like a 4-star team. You can run like double Sucrose or double Nemo, Razor Fischl, and then, yeah, this would be like a 5-star all-star team. Guys, like, there's just so many ways that you can incorporate her into a team that it's honestly so hard for me to even go over the team comps because it could be anything really, because Jean can fill so many roles. She can be your healer, your DPS, like it's crazy. But guys, if you really are struggling to incorporate Jean into your team, feel free, leave a message down below and I'm going to get back to you here. So guys, that's gonna bring us to the end of this video here. Thank you all so much for making it through and watching till the very end. Also, I do just want to let you guys know that the amount of support that you all have shown me in my last video, my D-Luke build video, holy shit, like that's been crazy. I did not expect to get that many views on the video, and I am truly glad that it has provided you guys some valuable information. Again, so I will be continuing to make Genshin Impact videos. I am going to continue making quality character guides, or do my best to bring you guys quality character guides such as this one as well as my last one. So please consider subscribing if you haven't already. A lot of my viewers right now are not subscribed to the channel, and it will mean so much to me if you guys do subscribe. So until next time, I'll see you guys in the Shang Li video. Take care. Peace out.